Microphone, webcam, sweet. All right. Hey guys, welcome back. It is that time again to talk about all the books that I have recently read. The first one is The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kristen White. This is a Frankenstein retelling, but from the perspective of Elizabeth Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein's wife. And that is not a spoiler, the fact that he's his wife, because I think it says it right here in... Elizabeth comes into Victor's life when he was a small boy. Victor was a really odd child who was prone to having fits, and his parents just really didn't know what to do with him. So the Frankensteins brought Elizabeth into their home as a ward, and she was a little bit older, I think, than Victor, or they're approximately the same age, but she was maybe a little bit older. I'm not sure. But she was going through a lot of things in her own life, and it was really a matter of survival to make herself indispensable to the Frankensteins. So she worked really hard to be able to connect to Victor, become really close with him, and be able to soothe away these fits. So they become very close as they're growing up. Victor is also a very intelligent child, and he's incredibly brilliant. So naturally, when he gets to college age, he goes off to study abroad. But Elizabeth cannot go because A, she's a woman, and she's just a ward. She's not really entitled to the education that Victor is. The Frankensteins are going to pay for her education. There's also another guy named Harry, and the three of them have this little trio friend group. I believe Harry also goes off to school with them, but something happens between Victor and Harry, and they're a little bit more estranged. Victor, being who he is, gets really carried away at his work and forgets to care for himself. So he kind of falls off the grid, and Elizabeth gets very worried about him. So she does call up Harry to track him down and just make sure he's doing okay and reminding him to please check in with her. But then she doesn't hear back from Harry and can't seem to get a hold of him either. So she finagles a way to be able to go off to find him. And it becomes quite the adventure all over the city, asking people about him, and she winds up at this bookstore, and the owner's name is Mary. So Elizabeth finds this mess, and Victor, just as suspected, got carried away. After this fiasco, Victor decides to go ahead and come home. Whatever project he was working on, he said it didn't work, and he comes home. But then as more things start to kind of puzzle themselves together, we finally start to kind of unravel what Victor has been working on. Also, I love Mary, the bookshop owner. It has to be a nod to Mary Shelley, the author of the original Frankenstein. And I think it is so cool because she's like, one of her scenes is that she's always in the bookstore and she never gets to go on any adventures, and so she wants to go on this adventure. So I thought that was really cool. After Elizabeth finds Victor and is confronted with the horrors of what Victor's been working on, she's forced to face many little instances in their history where perhaps she helped create the man that he became, because she was so set on making Victor happy so that the Frankensteins were placated and happy that they would keep her around. This book completely blew me away. It was such an amazing book. It was so well written. It felt so natural. The climax is so twisted. And I just have to say that what an incredible feat to be able to take such a well-known book, a well-known story, and where we already know the plot twist, we already know what's going to happen, and still make it intense, still make it terrifying, and still surprise the reader with what comes out of it. Still make it unnerving and scary and even uncertain of exactly how the author is going to rewrite the story, where she's going to take it, and it was a complete blast. Now, I actually have another video where I talk a little bit more in depth about a lot of the other aspects of the story that I really liked. So if you want to see that solo review, it should be up soon. Or I'm not sure which one's going to come out first, so I will try to link it below. The next book I read is called Brave by Rose McGowan. This is Rose McGowan's memoir. Rose McGowan is an actress, and I can only, at the time of reading this, I really could only recall a couple of roles that I really admired her in. One being Charmed. She was in Charmed after Shannon Doherty had left. And then she was also in Death Proof, and I really liked her in that. Like, what a cool character to have a gun for a leg. But I also forgot that she was in Jawbreaker as well. I remember liking that one. And she's been in other things as well. And she was also in Scream, and she has blonde hair, and that's why it didn't really occur to me right away. But anyways, I did really like the Scream movies growing up. Anyway, so Rose McGowan is an actress. She is so beautiful. I think she's just a really beautiful person. So Brave is the story of her life starting out, and she had quite an interesting start to her life. She was born into a cult in or near or around Florence, Italy. So she grew up as a young girl in Italy, and I just think that is so cool. Maybe not the cult part. Apparently the cult that she was born into was one called the Children of God. Just now seeing more videos kind of pop up on my YouTube feed about calling it one of the worst cults. So I am quite interested in those, but I just haven't gotten around to watching them yet. So it follows her as she's starting out her life in this cult. Her dad had actually moved her and her siblings back to America to kind of escape the cult. So then it also follows her transition to living in America and getting into show business, and then the harm that came from being a part of the Hollywood industry. From her encounters from powerful executives, producers, and most notably the harm that came from Harvey Weinstein. And Rose is pissed, rightfully so. So she is kind of giving us some backstory of her life, but she's also asking for a call to action for everyone to get mad and be aware of the cult and the machine of the entertainment industry, and how these wealthy and powerful men are really kind of supporting this harmful community that just perpetually keeps harming, and they are not being held accountable for their actions. I am actually making a more dedicated video to this book where I'm going to talk much more in depth about my feelings on this one. I definitely have a lot of different thoughts on this one, some further questions about this, and why this book didn't exactly work for me. I really feel that I would have liked a lot more soul searching from Rose on maybe more of her life. And the more I sit with this and the more I kind of talk about this book, I realize it really wasn't her purpose with this book. But regardless, that's just my feelings and what I kind of wish there was more of. So if you're interested in more of an in-depth talk on this book, there is another video. I don't know if it's going to come before or after this video, so I will try to make sure. Actually, if you subscribe and you hit the little bell, you will get notified when these videos start popping up. The next book I read is called Binti, and I'm not even going to try to attempt to pronounce the author's name. I don't want to butcher it. This is probably the shortest science fiction book I have ever read in my life. It's actually the first in a sequel. It's the first in a series, or maybe it's just a duology. I think there's only 2 of this series. Because it is so short, I really don't have a lot to say about it. Basically, this woman is getting on a ship to go somewhere. She's invited to be a part of this crew, and I feel like the entire book is really just talking about who she is, her culture, how people kind of look down on her, how she chooses to represent herself in some trinkets or whatever, like her necklaces or her braids or whatever, that are important and spiritual to her that some of the other crew members do not understand, and have even suggested that maybe she takes them off. And she says that she understands where they're coming from, but she just can't listen to all of their advice. She will listen to some of those things, but there are certain things that she's going to keep for herself. But she's extremely excited to be there and be a part of this mission, and she's just hoping that with time the other crew members will be able to accept her for who she is. I don't really think that you can even call this like a novel. It almost feels like just a character study. We're just having this one scene and this one discussion with this character, because there's nothing else that happens in this book. I would maybe even consider it like flash fiction, but it just isn't complete. And that's why I'm just feeling very confused about it. I mean, I kind of understand why this book is out there and why it's very popular, but as like a whole book, it just feels completely incomplete. As far as the character, I think she's a badass character, but I would like to know, where are they going? What are they going to do when they get there? I don't know, maybe get to know some of the other crew members. And I guess the next logical conclusion would be to read the next book in the series, but I feel more frustrated with this than anything, because I'm just like, this is not a series. This is like just a character. It's just a character. Anyways, the next book I read is called Mr. Magic, another one by Kristen White. Can you tell I really do like this author? Even though this book didn't exactly work for me. This group is about a group of people. They're all adults. They are getting together for this meeting to maybe do a reboot of this child's TV show that they were on when they were children. And apparently this TV show was a huge hit. It was so popular. But the group grew estranged after a tragedy happened on set. So there's like 4 of the 5 people that were in the show, something like that. Or maybe there's 5 of the 6. I can't recall. We have our main character who comes into this. There's a male counterpart, and then there's a female, and there's something kind of strange between the 3 of those people. So anyways, they all get together, and things about the past start to kind of unravel, and things start getting really weird. This is definitely considered a horror, and this definitely gave me House of Leaves vibes, like 100%. It's the only other, like, it's like every time I think of this book, I think House of Leaves. Like, the more and more we go through it, there's more hints and little tidbits about, like, this house. So the way I see it is there's, like, this house that this TV show is being filmed in, and, like, everything they did was being filmed. So that is the setting, and so when they all get together, they're actually staying at this house. So as we kind of move through the story, there's little tidbits, little hints, little like playbacks, flashbacks to different scenes. You know how like sitcoms and shows, they like have that token branded song, like songs start coming back to them, and it just kind of really builds on that intensity of like what's happening, what is happening next, what is this all about, what was this TV show about, and it gets very unsettling. However, as popular as this show was, it doesn't seem like anybody else except for the inner circle even remembers this at all. If that book House of Leaves scared you, I don't think this one will. I personally would actually call this more of a parody. However, I did look through the Goodreads profile of this book and even through other people's reactions to this book, and I feel like I'm the only one that feels like it's a lot more silly than it is serious. And I almost wonder if it's because of the whole like children's song kind of thing. But the lyrics to the song are really weird. It's kind of one of those situations where it's like when you're kids, you don't realize like what you're saying or what it means, and then you listen to things back as an adult and you're like, what? How did I not like pick up on that? And it's one of those kinds of things. And also I guess when things are like kiddish, it can, like, dolls are really creepy. So I guess in that sense, it's got creepy vibes. But I think one of the biggest things that probably just lost my interest in this book, and I wonder if it would be a completely different experience with this, was this long lost love story going on between the main character and one of the other other characters. As soon as they met each other for the first time again, like they were already working that love story in, and I was just like, oh my god, no. Like they were children together. It's been like 10 years, 20 years. I can't remember how long it's been. And she starts saying, "Oh yes, he was always the protector." And so what? That was years ago. You guys are different people now. That was in the setting of a TV show. I didn't like it, and I felt that there was a lot of ways that kind of overshadowed the plot. I mean, if we didn't have that, I could focus more on like the creepy house thing. I think what really sucked me in on this was the cover art. I really wanted to love this book. I'm also trying to get into a little bit more horror. I'm finding more and more like creepy vibes horror books that I'm really digging. So I wanted to give this a try. But yeah, so this was not exactly the book for me, unfortunately. But I am glad I read it. And also, again, I have a more in-depth discussion on this book as well. The next book I read is The Ravens by Cass Morgan and Daniel Page. This was a TBR pick, so there's a vlog around this book. This was a TBR Basket prompt pick for 2 authors. That's right. Written by 2 authors. And this one was quite the surprise. So it takes place in a sorority, and this is like an elite sorority where you have to be a witch to get accepted, and they have like this way that they can tell if you have any magic in you. And it's also told in a dual perspective from Vivi, who is the new Rush, and Scarlett, who is, I think it's her second or third year, and she's really trying to be like house mom or whatever. Like this is her lifestyle, you know? And she has this amazing boyfriend. She had her life planned out for her. And when Vivi comes into the picture, things just change. So, Scarlett at the beginning kind of has it out for Vivi, and there is this mystery of this other girl, and who something tragic happened to this girl, and there's this whole mystery that starts wreaking havoc on their lives. So they have to solve this mystery, and they end up all working as a team to solve this. And I thought this ended up like such a good book. I had a lot of fun with this, and I actually have The Monarchs, which is the second book to this, checked out on audiobook, so hoping to get to that this month. The next book I read is Unfiltered by Lily Collins. This, I swear, this last couple of months I've been reading so many nonfiction plus celebrity memoirs. I don't know. This one has been on my radar for a while because I really do like Lily Collins. I really liked, I can't say I like all of her movies, but I really liked her in The Shadowhunters. Look, Don't Come For Me. I loved that movie. I loved the Shadowhunters movie. I know it didn't really do the books justice, but as a movie itself, I like the actors and I thought they did a really good job. So anyways, this is Lily Collins' memoir, and she talks about her life, obviously, and she kind of touches on how she had eating disorders and her career. And I'll be honest, now that I'm talking about this book, it was not very strong for me. It didn't really work for me. I don't want to like judge someone's life, but she didn't really dig deep, I don't think. She really kind of stayed surface level, and it was, yeah, I feel like, I think that's all I can say about this one. Like I said, it didn't move me. She didn't really like dig deep on it, you know what I mean? So, and that's fine. I think that's completely fine because it is her life. And if she wants to not share everything or not be vulnerable, but I will say that people who are brave enough to be vulnerable and tell us like their deep dark emotions and how they responded to the things, some of the terrible things that happened to them, as well as great things, like whatever, when you dig a little bit deeper, you can move the reader a lot more. And so I'm just like, if you're not willing to do that, maybe just, I don't know. Also, it's called Unfiltered, but I feel that it is very filtered. She does not share everything with you, with the reader. So anyways, I have 3 more to talk about. Okay, so we have California by Eden, and this is a dystopian novel, and it follows Cal and Frida, who are a married couple, and they used to live maybe San Francisco, or maybe is it Orange County? I don't know, like kind of Southern California. They lived in like a big city in California, but things were getting really crazy, so they moved. And you actually don't get a whole lot of information about the world as a whole. You just know that some bad things have happened and they really just felt unsafe living in the cities, so they left the city, but they left their family there in the city, who I guess kind of got with a community there. So they're living out here in the country, and they're living in this house, and they actually have some neighbors, and the neighbors have a couple of kids or whatever. And our main female character, Frida, feels like she's pretty lonely. And then she also gets some news that makes her a little bit more uneasy, and like, we're gonna need to change our lives somehow, some way, something's gonna have to change. And her neighbor had said something about a community, and then there's this guy that kind of travels with a trailer or whatever, where he goes somewhere. They don't know where he goes or how he gets this stuff, but he comes to trade from time to time so they can get products. And she decides to investigate the spikes. They call them the spikes. It's kind of strange, I don't know. And then she finds that there's this community, so she and Cal decide to go check it out. And they get to this gate. This community goes ahead and lets them in, and it's just crazy. And I really can't tell you any more, because how they got in there, who her brother is, and how things in this community start to get more and more uneasy and creepy, and secrets being kept from them, and this impending doom that something terrible is going to happen, and that like it gets more and more crazy. And so I did really enjoy this book. And yeah. That I did also read like the extra stuff in the back, like the interview with the author and everything. And you might feel a little bit dissatisfied if you're hoping for like this whole dystopian full flesh story, because it's really not about this whole story. It's just about these two main characters and their experiences. And so you don't really understand the world, and you're not going to. And that was intentional. One thing I can say about the world is that it's almost like these big companies have taken over the world, and they are like in charge of running these communities now. And on the back it says, imagines a frighteningly realistic future where the demons of our human nature, paranoia, secrecy, and corruption, have displaced social order and common law. This is kind of like the author's commentary on the degradation of society. So you might be able to see some. What makes it so scary is that it's like, could our world look like this in the future? And then I read both Chain of Iron and Chain of Thorns, finishing up the Last Hours trilogy. I can't really say a lot about these also, because obviously they're the second and third books of a trilogy, but the trilogy as a whole was so good. It was so good. I really enjoyed this. It was a nice way to come back into the Shadowhunter world. And it is juicy. It is sexier than the rest of the series so far. Like it's definitely got like more. Her writing definitely has come a long way. So yeah, this was a journey this month. Quite a lot to finish. And also, I'm sorry, this keeps jangling. I didn't even realize how that might be very distracting to this video, because my mic is right here too, so it's probably picking up every jangle. I apologize. We'll see how awful that is when I go to edit this video. But anyways, with the Shadowhunter books, I have extensive vlogs on the reading experience of those. They do have spoilers, but if you're into that, please go check those out. And the very last book that I read was a graphic novel called Eat and Love Yourself by Sweeney Boo. And this is, you probably could tell from the title, this is a graphic novel about a girl's eating disorder. And I've read a lot of books and I've watched a lot of like documentaries about eating disorders, and I just don't think that this really did it justice. I don't know. I didn't care for its betrayal. I didn't care for the portrayal of what it's like to have an eating disorder, because I feel like that it oversimplifies it a little bit. Granted, it definitely highlights the fact that our main character is struggling with this big thing she feels out of control over in her life, and so this becomes a way to gain some sort of control. But once we arrive there, that she has this problem and her parents take her to the doctor, it's like she manages to tie it all up in this nice little bow by the end of it. And I just feel like that's I just hope whoever reads this just enjoys the artwork, because it's beautiful artwork. But I just think that for an eating disorder, it's not serious enough or something. So anyways, I was not a big fan of this, but I loved the artwork. That's actually one of the biggest reasons I picked it up, because it's like my favorite kind of art style. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. That concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and have a good night. We'll see you soon. Bye.